Dakshinamurthi Stotram. First, proper pranayama, deep exhalation, followed by deep inhalation. Hold your breath for as long as possible and then exhale consciously. While doing this pranayama, make sure that your physical body is totally relaxed. Mind is focused on the breath, not wandering anywhere. And doing this correctly, consistently will quieten your mind. Let's now practice a few times. Now, with a quietened mind, one should do Nididhyasanam, Upasana Dhyanam, done after studying Vedanta Shastras, with the mind focused on the Supreme Reality, Brahma Tattvam, by recollecting key Upanishad mantras pointing to Brahman and reiterating the already understood meanings of these key Upanishad mantras. The central message of these Upanishad Vakyas being that our own true nature, Atman, is not different from Brahman, the Supreme Reality. So, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha, to be reiterated during Nididhyasanam, so that this message is totally internalized, resulting in transformation of the individual from Jiva Bhava to Brahma Bhava. So the process of converting knowledge or information into transformation is Nididhyasanam. Upanishad itself says, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma Tat Jalaniti Shanta Upasita. So, to begin with, Shanta Upasita. Quieten your mind. And then Upasita, do Upasana, Nidhyasanam on Brahman. As what? Idam Sarvam Khalu Brahma. Verily, all around us, only absolutely real principle, absolute reality is Brahman. Though not comprehensible by our sense organs or mind, but by systematic study of Vedanta Shastras, we are established in this doubtless knowledge that there is a supreme reality, Brahma Tattvam, that is all pervading. And the supreme reality is called absolute reality because It is absolute in itself. It is independent of any other entity and of the nature of absolute existence, absolute consciousness, absolute bliss. Satchit Ananda Swarupam. And from this absolute reality, Brahma Tattvam, emerges the seemingly real, relatively real, actually unreal universe. Remember, the universe is experienced by our sense organs, comprehended by our mind, is only a matter principle, doesn't have any existence of its own. It borrows existence from Brahman and undergoes continuous creation, sustenance, dissolution, srishti, sthiti, layam. Since the universe has no existence of its own, it is called as being relatively real, seemingly real, actually equal to being unreal. And since Brahman is the fundamental cause of the universe, Brahman here is called as Tajjalan. Remember the mantra, Sarvam Khalbidam Brahma Tajjalan iti Shanta Upasita. Tajjalan means that principle, that supreme principle, Brahma Tattvam, Jalan, from which the universe undergoes Srishti, Sthiti, Layam. So, by pointing out that the universe around us, the world we are experiencing, is only unreal. So, also our own physical body, sense organs, mind, thoughts are all matter principles. They are also only seemingly real. They borrow existence from Brahman, manifest themselves, sustain for some period of time, and then they get resolved into fundamental matter. They are also only seemingly real. Remember, by pointing out that both the world, the events happening around us, and also closer to our own self, the physical body, whatever happens to it, as well as the thoughts that are arising in the mind, all being only matter principles, having no existence of their own, that they are only seemingly real. Upanishad is conveying a very important message. What is that? The message is that just like unreal things, things that don't have existence, do not create any impact on our mind, do not create impressions on our mind. So also through this knowledge, this jnanam, which is called as Advaita Jnanam, that Brahman alone is absolutely real. Rest are only seeming real, actually unreal. One should learn not to be perturbed, disturbed, or affected by anything happening around, including whatever may happen to one's physical body or whatever thoughts arise in one's mind. One should learn to treat them as distinctly different from oneself, which do not have any existence. And so, this knowledge, Advaita Jnanam, alone will ensure that the mind is ever in an undisturbed, unperturbed, peaceful state. Well, ignorant people, not knowing this reality, not knowing that Brahman alone is absolutely realist or only seeming real, actually unreal, treat everything that's happening around as something that is absolutely real, attaching themselves emotionally to things happening around, including their own thoughts, which many of the times doesn't happen as per their expectations. Things, when they're not favorable to them and they don't happen as per their expectations, they are subject to sorrow and then dejection and depression. And caught in this whirlpool of upheaval of mind, they are unable to recover from the sorry state of their own self. That's why the Upanishad is constantly conveying that one should strive to attain this jnanam, Advaita jnanam, through which one is able to separate oneself from everything around and remain peaceful, unperturbed, undisturbed by being a witness of everything around, including one's own thoughts. Or the best type of dhyanam is to observe one's own mind. Thakshi cheta kevalo nirgunascha. And this is the only way for one to be established in permanent peace. There is no other way. Nanyaf pantha ayanaya vidyate. So proclaiming the Veda mantras. So one should make every attempt, all the effort in this human birth, great opportunity provided to us to attain this Advaita Jnanam and be established in permanent peace. Now, to further elaborate on the all-pervading nature of Brahman, let's recollect another key Upanishad mantra pointing to Brahman being all-pervading. Brahmi Vedam Amritam Purastad Brahma Paschat Brahma Dakshinatastottarena Adhastordhamscha Prasritam Brahmi Vedam Vishwamidam Varishtham Idam Vishwam Brahmayorishtam. In this universe, Brahman alone is the greatest, most glorious principle, all-pervading principle of the nature of Amritatvam. Do not forget Brahmi Vedam Amritam Purasthat. So this absolute reality, Brahma Tattvam, Satchidananda Swarupam, is of the nature of immortality, ever existent, never subject to creation, never undergoes any changes, ever pure, never subject to decay or destruction. This ever pure Satchidananda Swarupam, Brahma Tattvam is in front of us, behind us, to our right, to our left, below and above. And also inside and outside each one of us. Antar Bahishcha Tatsarvam Vyapya Narayana Sthitaha. So if this Brahma Tattvam Satchidananda Swarupam is also present within each of us, how do we know? How do we understand? How do we recognize? And why should we make an attempt to understand? Because Brahman is the nature of Ananda Swarupam. Remember, Satchit Ananda Swarupam. So one who makes an attempt to understand and knows that verily this Brahma Tattvam is present within oneself and over a period of time owns up to this Brahman as one's own true nature, is established in permanent bliss, Paramanandam. Brahman is equal to Anandam. So one who knows Brahman as one's own true nature will also be established in Anandam. Upanishads point out that the same Brahma Tattvam that is all pervading is also present within each of us, now called as Atman. Atman also is Satchidananda Swarupam, Brahman also is Satchidananda Swarupam. And by focusing on any of the three natural aspects, Swarupa Lakshanam of Atman, Sat Swarupam, Chit Swarupam, or Ananda Swarupam, with a mind that is withdrawn from the external world, quietened and focused internally, looking at oneself, with careful analysis, one will be able to understand clearly that verily this supreme reality, Brahma Tattvam, is present within each of us. So now let's focus on one of the aspects, Ananda Tattvam. From Satchit Ananda Swarupam, let's focus on the Ananda Tattvam, absolute bliss nature of Atman present within each of us. How do we know this Ananda Tattvam is present within us? For that, one is to analyze how does the mind experience happiness? The happiness is actually a small part, byproduct of the Anandam or bliss that we talk about. And normally we think that the objects in the world are sources of happiness, because when we see something that we like, we become happy. Similarly, when we hear something we like, we become happy, so on and so forth. Every sense organ, when connected with the respective sense objects, when it is favorable and the individual likes them and comes in contact with them, then there is an experience of happiness. But actually, Shastras say that the worldly objects do not have any happiness of their own. It's only because at some point in time, because there are some desires that are arising in the mind, and on fulfilling which the mind gets quietened for a brief period. So when something we expect happens, something we want to see, we are able to see it. Similarly, hear, touch, etc. There is a desire for something, and the state of desire, the mind is actually in a disturbed state. It is not peaceful. And just like a mirror covered with dust is unable to reflect light, a disturbed mind cannot reflect the Paramanandam absolute bliss that is present within each of us, Atma Tattvam, which is the nature of absolute bliss. But when this desire is fulfilled, and sometimes when the objects that we desire are presented to us and they are favorable to us, the mind is quietened for a brief period of time. And just like a spotless mirror, the mirror without any dirt is able to reflect light completely. Our own mind, which is now clean without any disturbance, is able to reflect the infinite permanent bliss, Anandam, that is present within us. So the source of happiness is not something that is external, it's not from the world or worldly objects, but from our own self within the Atman, which is the nature of Paramanandam. So this analysis constantly one should engage to understand that world is neither a source of happiness nor a source of sorrow. Our own true nature, Atman, which is not different from Brahman, is alone the source of infinite happiness, which is called as bliss, Paramanandam. So recollect the Upanishad mantra pointing to Brahma Tattvam as Ananda Swarupam, which is also our own true nature. Yato vacho nivartante अप्राप्य मनसा सह आनंदम ब्रह्मणो विद्वान न बिभेति कुतश्च नेति. So that supreme reality, Brahma Tattvam, yato vacho nivartante, which cannot be explained by words. Words return back, unable to explain the nature of Brahman. Aprapya manasa saha, even the mind cannot comprehend Brahman as an object because Brahman can never be objectified. Only a principle, all pervading absolute principle can never be objectified, but can be understood as what? Anandam Brahmano Vidvan. So one who understands that Brahman is the nature of Paramananda Swarupam. And one's own nature, Atman, is also Ananda Swarupam, Ananda Atma. So one who understands Brahman as Ananda Swarupam, Nabibheti Kutaschaniti, is no longer subject to any fear because knowing oneself as Ananda Swarupam, ever established in peace and bliss, person goes beyond all fears and then established in Atmanas, Atmanishta, Brahmanishta, knowing that I am ever complete, no more desires to be fulfilled, established in a desireless state. Remember, the unfulfilled desires only are the seeds for this continuous cycle of birth and death. The next cycle of birth and death is based on our own unfulfilled desires. So, ignorant people, not knowing, keep on chasing fulfillment of desires as their goal in life and die with a lot of unfulfilled desires and again subject to cycle of birth and death. And Atmajnani, Brahmajnani established in this Jnanam, Advaita Jnanam, Atmajnanam, Brahmajnanam, established in a desireless state, overcomes this cycle of birth and death, overcomes samsara chakram and attains immortality. So knowledge of absolute reality of one's own true nature, Atman, Atmajnanam, which is not different from Brahman, is bestowed with immortality. Now let's see how in Dakshinamurti Stotram, Acharya Shankara points out that this Satchit Swarupam actually one's own true nature, not different from the absolute reality, which is all pervading. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Medeva Sarvakaryesh Sarvada Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Shaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarvalokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tadashiva Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Surismati Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakatam Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Yomavat Vyapta Dehaja Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Apara Karuna Sindhum Jnanadam Shantarupinam Sri Chandrasekhara Gurum Pranamami Mudanman. Om So I'll now chant 6 key shlokas focusing on Dhyanam. Not to forget them, also reiterate the meaning of these verses while chanting them. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Shri Saraswati Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om Shri Bhagavanu Vacha, Teshamevanukampartham, Ahamajnanajam Tamaha, Nashayamyatmabhavasthaha, Jnanadipena Bhasvata, ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिः तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यं हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितं न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानम् येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परं यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तमाहुः पंडितं बुधाः ओम शांति शांति शांति. Now let's focus on the 5 key verses which explain to us the matter principle. Constantly remember them. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mame Vahe Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite Ananyas Chintayanto Mam E Janah Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम् मत्तः परतरं नान्यत् किञ्चिदस्ति धनञ्जय मयि सर्वमिदं प्रोतं सूत्रे मणिगणा इव ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया. So how to overcome this Maya Prabhavam? Only by Advaita Jnanam. It is summarized in this wonderful Gaudapada Karika. So recollect this. It presents the essence of all the Upanishad Shastras. Prapancho yadi vidyeta nivarteta na samshayaha Maya matramidam dvaitam Advaitam paramarthataha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today's Gita Shloka for contemplation. Continuing our contemplation of the key verses from the 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga. Today, taking up verse number 22 from Dhyana Yoga, 6.22. Let's stand this verse and understand the meaning. What is the greatest benefit of Dhyanam? So Bhagavan is emphasizing here what is the phalam, dhyana phalam. If one does dhyanam correctly, consistently, what is the benefit that one gets? Shri Bhagavan yam labdha cha param labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin sthito na dukkhena गुरुणापि विचाल्यते ओम शांति शांति शांति. Now recollect how systematically Bhagavan has taken us on the path of Dhyanam Nijidhyasanam by presenting Antaranga Sadhana, Bahiranga Sadhana, Dhyana Swarupam, nature of Dhyanam. And now what is Dhyana Phalam? What is the benefit of Dhyanam? Bhagavan says that Labdhva yam cha. Labdhva, attaining. Which means what? attaining that state of mind, which is called as now Samprajnata Samadhi. Remember that state of mind in which one is only aware of one's own existence. That's it, nothing else, that I exist. So, on attaining this pinnacle of dhyanam, when one attains that, na manyate, one is clearly established because it is what? Buddhigrahyam. One is clearly established in knowledge. Na manyate, one does not consider aparam labham, any other attainment, adhikam tataha, to be superior to that state of experience of the mind. Means what? One attains perfect dhyanam, is established in such a peaceful state, and that state where the mind experiences supreme bliss, Atmanandam, the person realizes or knows that there is no other achievement that can be greater than this. Greatest achievement that one can get is Atmanandam. So one does not consider any other attainment to be superior to that state of mind. It has been attained through what? Yoga Sevaya, continuous practice of Dhyanam. So it is the highest state one can attain in terms of experience of mind. And what is the second benefit? Sthitaha yasmin, remaining in that state. That means what? The fundamental source of this Anandam is Jnanam. Tatpataha, remember. Tatpajnanam, through this Tatpajnanam, just re-emphasized during the Dhyasanam so that the mind is withdrawn. What we do is just the mind is trained to apply the knowledge of Atmajnanam systematically by disconnecting oneself from the world, external objects, then one's own physical body, mind, sense organs, and finally establish oneself in pure awareness, that is existence, Atman. So remaining in that state. So both during Dhyanam, one remains in the state, and when not in Dhyanam, this knowledge is the background. Remember, this is called state of Turiyam, remaining in that state. Na vichalyate, one is not shaken. Api guruna dukkhena. It's very important. So this jnanam is what we try to re-emphasize during Jidhyasanam to experience supreme bliss during Dhyanam. Same Dhyanam should always be there. It's not that after Dhyanam, this Dhyanam is forgotten. How and why is that important and why is that being pointed out? Bhagavan says that na vichalyate, one is not shaken, one is not perturbed or disturbed by what? Api guruna dukkhena. Even though there is a great calamity, something that is seemingly unfavorable, absolutely unexpected things happen, maybe shocking. Well, normal people, ignorant people, not knowing this absolute reality, Brahman, and rest are all being only Maya, break down, totally break down, unable to recover. So this person is not even shaken, even a bit, even by great calamity. And when will this calamity be experienced? Not during Dhyanam, while being in normal interaction with the world. So even when the worldly interactions are there, this Dhyanam is a great source of strength. That is why Atmana Vindate Vidyam, remember. So Api Guruna Dukkhena Na Vichalyate. Even if there is a great calamity, unfavorable things, shocking things, a person who has practiced Nidhyasanam and established oneself in this Atmak Dhyanam will be unshaken, unperturbed, undisturbed, ever peaceful. Because everything that is happening is what? Only seeming real. They have no reality. Tattvataha, the tattvam is important. Only to make the mind more and more established in this jnanam, nijidhyasanam is practiced. And what is nidhyasanam? To remove one's habitual thought of viparita jnanam, that in spite of all the knowledge that I get and I attain, somehow, no, there is some impediment for the free flow of knowledge, which is removed through nidhyasanam. So what is learned through Shravanam and Mananam is re-emphasized during nidhyasanam, so that the mind becomes fully established without viparita jnanam. And so, second great benefit is even by any great calamity, one is not shaken, one remains unperturbed, undisturbed, ever peaceful. So, very important verse which shows that this Atmajnanam, which is fortified through Nidhyasanam, renders one in a supremely peaceful state, and also that state is greater than anything else. Nothing can be greater than that. So let's stand this verse and remember the greatest benefit of Nidhyasanam. So one should practice every day at least for a few minutes, 10 minutes at least, quality time focused on Dhyanam. So Shri Bhagavanuvacha Yam Labhva Chaparam Labham Manyate Nadhikam Tataha Yasmin Sthito Na Dukkhena Gurunapi Vichalyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now let's start our session on Dakshinamurthi Stotram, which points out these verses the nature of pure consciousness principle, our true nature. Chant the Dhyana shlokas in the first three verses you already learned. Atha Srimad Shankaracharya Virachita Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram Om Maunam Yakhya Prakatita Para Brahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varshishthante Vasadrishiganaihi Avratam Brahmanishthaihi Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmutramanandamurtim Swatmaramam Mudita Badanam Dakshinamurti Midhe Om Vatavita Pisamipe Bhumi Bhage Nishannam Sakala Munijananam Dhyanadataramarat Tribhuvana Gurumisham Dakshinamurti Devam Janana Marana Dukkacheda Daksham Namami Chitram Batataror Mule Vriddha Shishya Gururyuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshayaha Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Chidghanaya Maheshaya Mathamula Nibasine Satchidananda Rupaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now chant the first three verses. Also while chanting, see if you can remember the meanings of these verses which I have understood in detail. Vishvam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyannatmani mayaya bahirivodbhutam yatha nidraya yasakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitra Chitrikritam Maya Viva Vijrumbhayatyapi Maha Yogiva Yasvechaya Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Sphuranam Sadatmakamasat Kalparthagambhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Veda Vachasayo Bodhayatyashritan Yasakshat Karanad Bhavenna Punaravrittirbhavambho Nidhau Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Also I have learned the fourth verse, right? Nana Chidra Ghatodara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam yasya tu chakshuraadhikaranadvara bahispandate. Janamiti tameva bhantam anubhatyetat samastam jagat. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ardham Swagatam, hearty welcome to the next session, understanding the meanings of verses of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram. So the first three verses, to be very clear now, the first verse points to Tvam Pada Artham, our own true nature. The second verse points to Tat Padartham, that is the nature of supreme reality, the cause of the entire universe. Bijasyantari Vankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha. And the third verse points to the oneness of the individual supreme reality, oneness of existence and consciousness. Tattvamasi Mahavakyam. Now, what is the nature of this consciousness is what is being explained in the fourth verse, which is Nana Chidra Gatodana Stitamaha Deepa Prabha Bhaswaram. So to understand this, in the last session, we had some background information. What is that? Every cognition has got two aspects. What are they? Samanya Jnanam and Vishesha Jnanam. Example, if you are able to cognize an object which has got a form, color, shape, etc., two things are required. One, light that is required, and two, eyes which cognize the object, out of which the light is the common entity, but the objects could be different. So the objects are called, the cognizance of the particular object is called Vishesha Jnanam. The fact that light is common to everything is Samanyam. So when you extend that to the individual, when you see something, you see that, you say that I am aware of that object. When you hear something, I am aware of the sound. When you taste something, I am aware of the taste. Something is common to all the experiences. What is that? Awareness, awareness, awareness. I am aware of something that is specific. So the specific aspect is called Vishesha Jnanam. The common aspect is called Samanya Jnanam. It's called Samanya Satta. The Samanya Jnanam is consciousness principle, which is underlying principle for all the specific knowledge. The Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandham, they're all only specific, but something that is common, commonly making us aware. What is that? Our consciousness principle, nature of our existence is consciousness principle, which is Atma Tattvam, our own true nature. So this consciousness principle of ours is called Samanya Jnanam, Samanya Tattvam. And so, to make us aware that in all our experiences, in all our so-called cognitions, knowledge, something common exists. Acharya Shankara gives us an example. And what are the Upanishad mantras pointing to this? Samanya Jnanam. Pratibodha Viditam Matam. That means what? Bodham, Bodham, Pratibodham. In all our cognitions, there is something that is common. That is the conscious principle. Remember that. Where is it coming from? Within us, our own true nature. And natatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vijito bhanti kutoya magnihi. None of the luminous bodies can exist on their own. They are existent and are able to provide knowledge only because of the presence of tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. So underline this line. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam is very similar to what? Tameva bhantam anubhati etat samastam jagat. Look at the third line. Janamiti tameva bhantam anubhati etat samastam jagat. When you do Padavibhaga, you'll understand more details. So, almost a replica of the Natatra Suryo Bhati mantra in this verse. Now, what is nature of this consciousness principle? It is self-evident. Remember, Just like light doesn't require any other source to reveal there is light. The moment you switch on light, do you need some other source of light to show that this light exists? No, the moment light is on, it is self-evident. Similarly, consciousness, the very fact that I am aware, the awareness of an individual with respect to any specific knowledge, the very fact that I'm aware doesn't require any other source to make me aware that I got awareness. So consciousness is self-evident. So it's called Swatasiddha Tattvam. Write down. Swatasiddha means what? Self-evident. Doesn't require any other proof to prove that consciousness exists. That is one important principle. Write down. Second important principle is everything else becomes cognizable because of consciousness. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Without consciousness, nothing can be made aware to individual. So you may have light, you may have the object, etc. But without consciousness principle present behind the eye, chakshushas chakshuhu, remember that. Shrotrasya shrotram manaso mano yad vachuha vacham. So pranasya pranaha chakshushas chakshuhu. Without the conscious principle, cannot be aware. So everything becomes aware only because of the presence of consciousness principle. And this consciousness is what? Nitya Prakashaha, third important aspect, ever existent. See, self-evident is one aspect, but ever existent, it doesn't come and go. Like the sense organs, what sometimes they're active, then they go to sleep. And what? They are not aware. So when you sleep, you're not aware of anything that is an object, right? It is ever existent. So consciousness is Nitya Prakashaha. And that is what Acharya Shankara wants to point out. Now, look at the verse with all this knowledge. We'll do Padavibhaga, Nanmaya, understand the verse in detail correctly. The first line is actually one compound word, Samastha Padam. I'll give the individual Shabda so that you understand the meanings through Sandhi Vibhaga, not Padavibhaga, because there is only one Padam. Na, Chidraha, Ghataha, Udara, Sthita, Mahadeepa, Prabha, Bhaswaram. So now look at the meaning of this. Na means what? Many. So in the example, what is the example that Acharya Shankara is giving? You have to now imagine a pot, a clay pot, which has got 5 holes, in which a lamp, a source of light, what you can see, a lamp is having wonderful flame, is kept inside. And so what will happen when there are holes within, from the external part of the pot, through the holes, what will happen? The light that is within will come out, right? So similar to that, our own physical body is compared to the pot with 5 openings. Here, the key focus is the 5 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, through which consciousness is seemingly flowing out. So, Nana Chidram means what? Multiple holes are formed in which what? Ghataha. Just like a pot with multiple holes. Example, 5 holes, in which what is happening? Udhara sthitaha. That means what? Udhara means inside. Sa means is kept. So, in a pot with multiple holes, inside it, something is kept. What is kept? Mahadeepam. So, a very powerful lamp, Mahadeepam, when it is kept within a clay pot with, example, 5 holes, multiple holes, what happens? That Prabha means what? That light. So sun is called Prabhakaraha. Why? Sun is a source of light. Prabhakaraha, one who gives light. So Prabha. So the light from that lamp that is kept inside. Bhaswaram. Bhaswaram means the brilliance of the light is flowing out. Similar to that, remember, within our physical body, it has got all the sense organs through which what? We start perceiving external objects. Remember the mantra from Kathopanishad. Paranchikhani Vetunat Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman Kaschidhiraha Pratyagatmanamaikshat Amrita Chakshuhu Amritatvam Icchan. So what is happening? Ignorant people, not knowing that the very fact of cognizance of all the external objects because of something that is coming from inside. Do not focus on that supreme principle within, but are always outward going in their thought through the sense organs. Use the sense organs to start looking at external world and get totally engulfed in the worldly objects without looking inward at the source of cognition without which nothing can be cognized. Just like we forget all the key people in our lives who are responsible for our success and continue to focus on other things. Similarly, the very existence conscious principle that is enabling us to exist and also experience the world is totally forgotten, taken for granted. So that conscious principle is what is happening to it. It's called as jnanam. Here, second line, jnanam yasya tu chakshuhu adi karanat dvara bahihi spandate. This bhaswaram, this brilliance of this consciousness principle flows out as jnanam, knowledge, cognition. Through what? Yasya tu, through which? Through this conscious principle which flows out through what? Chakshuhu adi. What is chakshuhu? Eyes. Adi, etc. That means what? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The consciousness is actually flowing out through all these five key sense organs, organs of knowledge, through which we are able to cognize the different sense objects. So this should be very clear, right? It's not just by the mere presence of the sense organs that one is able to cognize the respective sense object, but only because of the presence of the conscious principle behind them, which is flowing out through them from within. So, jnanam yasya tu. But only because of this jnanam, this conscious principle, samanya jnanam, chakshuhu adi, eyes, etc., through which what? Karanat, instruments of knowledge, organs of knowledge, dvara, they are like the doors through which the entire worldly objects enter us. So they're called dvara. Bahihi spandate. Bahihi. That means the consciousness is flowing out. Spandate is flowing out. So only if the consciousness is there in all the different sense organs, we can cognize anything in the world. Shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandham. Where is it coming from? From within us. That conscious, all pervading principle present within us. Remember the example. Sunlight, mirror, and a dark room. So mere sunlight cannot enable light into dark room unless there is a mirror which reflects the sunlight into the dark room. Mere mirror cannot give us the light in the room. It requires the sunlight. So the sunlight is compared to conscious principle, Atma Tattvam. The mirror is compared to the mind. So the mind is able to reflect the consciousness through which all the sense organs become enabled to cognize the respective sense objects. Then so what do we say after that? Yeah. Janami iti. Janami iti. So I know. See, I am aware of this object. I am aware of this color. Janami means I know. Uttama Purusha. So we keep on saying that I know, I am able to hear, I am able to smell, I am able to taste, I am tasting this. How? Iti tamyeva bhantam. Only because of the presence of the consciousness principle. Tam eva, that because of that alone. Bhantam, which is present and invigorating, or what? Giving the consciousness nature to all the sense organs and the mind. Because of that alone, I'm able to say what? I know this, I'm hearing this, I'm smelling this, I'm tasting this, I'm seeing this. So without the consciousness, none of the specific knowledge can be attained or obtained. So the common knowledge, the common principle behind all the cognition, what? Pratibodha viditam matam tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. So janami iti. They all say, I know, I know, I know. How? Because of the conscious principle. Tam eva bhantam anubhati. Anubhati. Everything else is cognized because of the presence of bhantam, that conscious principle. What? Etat sarvam jagat. So the entire world is being experienced. How? Because of the presence of consciousness inside, which we totally forget, taken for granted. And to that Guru Murthy, that teacher, who is the nature of this consciousness principle, Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye. So, to that teacher, Acharya, Vedanta Acharya, who is the form of what? Your conscious principle, not different from Lord Dakshinamurthi, my prostration. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam. Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So, what is the essence of this verse? One forgets that one's own true nature, Atman, nature of pure consciousness, is responsible for cognition of everything in the world. And because of that alone, everything becomes what? Aware to the individual. So, what is important? Important is the worldly object or the enabler of the knowledge. So, the important principle is the conscious principle which is present within. So, one should focus on that, understand that as our true nature. Rest are all only what? Superimposition, seeming real. That is the way for one to be established in permanent peace through this Atma Jnanam. So, let's stand this verse and then go to the next verse. Nana Chidra Ghatodara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuraadhikaranadvara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bhantam Anubhatyetat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. Now let's chant the next verse. It is very interesting. The fourth verse is going to focus on Ajnanam, Avidya, Adhyasam. Because of wrong knowledge, without having proper understanding of Atma Tattvam, people do not take the right path, the path of Vedanta, Shastra, Shravana, Manana, Nidhyasana. They don't take to Vedantic studies, either use their own intellect or common sense or perverted intellect, through which they think that something else is the absolute reality, because of which they are thrown into confusion from which they can never recover. And how the Vedanta Acharya is able to get us out of this Ajnanam Adhyasam by taking us on the right path of Vedanta Shastras to attain the knowledge, is what is going to be conveyed to the fourth verse. The key messages are: real cause for samsara or dukkham is avidya, ajnanam, adhyasam, and a guru alone can take us correctly on the path of Vedanta Shastra study to get us this knowledge. So I will chant this verse. If Ken is present, chant after me, and then we will then go into the meanings of this verse later. Deham pranamapindriyan epichalan. Is Ken there? It's not there in the session. Okay, I'll chant twice. Okay. Deham pranamapindriyan epichalan. Buddhincha shunyam viduhu buddhim cha shunyam viduhu स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Now let's stand this first couple of times and then going to the meanings. Deham pranamapindriyani pichalan buddhincha shunyam viduhu स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Again. देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियाणि पिचलान् बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः स्त्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वहमिति भ्रान्ताभृशं वादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमः व्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in this verse, Acharya Shankara is also taking up the viewpoint of Atman or absolute reality from different schools of thought. Remember, Vedanta is a highly evolved science, science of reality, absolute reality, based on Vedas. Remember, Vedanta Shastra Deva Avagamyate, only by Vedanta Shastras, which is nothing but the Vedic knowledge through which alone one can attain this knowledge. Whereas there are many schools of thought which don't even accept the Vedas. They are called Avaidika Matam. Write down broadly Vaidika Matam and Avaidika Matam. Viewpoints with respect to what is absolute reality and how one can be established in permanent happiness. This is the goal of all the different schools of thought. But many of them not accepting the Vedas, follow a particular path, arrive at wrong conclusions. What are the wrong conclusions which have to be negated? That's what Acharya Shankara is pointing out in this verse, and also how this ignorance is continuing to get deepened because of wrong knowledge and wrong schools of thought. So for this, Acharya Shankara is actually analyzing an individual with four different mindset. The mindset which leads to one, whether to take the right path, systematic path, studying the Shastras through a Guru Shastra, Upadishta, Susamskritamanaha, to follow that path, or take some other path which is different from Vedas, depends on the state of mind. So, what are the different aspects of individuals, different types of individuals, or what having this kind of state of mind which makes them take to different schools of thought? So, four types broadly will introduce, then we'll go into details in the next session. One is a mind that is overcome with a lot of emotions. An emotional mind will not think intellectually, will not be able to do analysis, vicharam. So emotional mind leads to wrong conclusions, makes one take an emotional path towards the goal and will not get to the ultimate goal correctly. Second is a mind that is immature. So immature mind is something that is not able to analyze whatever is presented by the different aspects, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandham, taken immediately what is present without any maturity, reactive mind, immature mind also leads to wrong knowledge. Then there's a third type, which has got some intellect, but that intellect is perverted intellect. What thinking that I know everything doesn't take the help of the Shastras, Vedanta Shastras, one's own what? Inner engineering, discovery. I have discovered this. I have discovered something new. That is perverted intellect. People who have that approach also take the wrong path, finally fall into oblivion. And finally, a mind that is never able to raise itself. It's called a retarded intellect. That means what? Always getting into negative spiral, not able to become positive, start thinking correctly. So that kind of intellect is a retarded intellect. So four broad categories of people whose thought process leads them to take to the wrong path. And Acharya Shankara says, my prostrations to the Guru, who has removed this Maya Moham from my mind, Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpitamaha Vyamoha Samharine. So to that Guru who has removed this knowledge by giving me the right knowledge, Vyamohams has been totally destroyed. Samharine to that Guru by systematic teaching of the Vedanta Shastras, Vedanta Shastra, Vedanta Acharya. I am blessed with such a Guru. My prostrations to that Guru has given me this knowledge. It's what Acharya Shankara is saying. This particular verse, wonderful verse, we'll go into detail in the next session. Chant it and end. Deham pranam apindriyan epichalan buddhincha shunyam viduhu Sri balandha jadopamastahamiti bhranta vrishambadinaha Maya shakti bilasa kalpitamaha vyamoha samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat Krishna 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 Shubhamastu Samasta Sanmangalani Bhavantu. Hari Om. Meet again Thursday morning. Continuing study of the Kathopanishad. Narayana Narayana Narayana.